Hi, I'm Neeraj Jain, and I'm on the Chai with Champs podcast with Ritika Agarwal.
Welcome to the Chai with Champs podcast. This is the center stage for South Asian cinema. I'm your host, Ritika Agarwal, and I'll be sitting down with Oscar-nominated producers, award-winning directors, actors, composers, influential film critics, and more who are shaping the future of South Asian cinema. Chai with Champs is sponsored by Sunblue Sound, a visionary audio production company that specializes in post-sound for visual media. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Chai with Champs podcast, Season 3. I'm here with Neeraj Jain. Please join me in welcoming him. Hi.
Hey, my name is Neeraj Jain. I'm a cinematographer and producer, and I dabble in photography as another form of kind of exploring the work that I do.
I'm so excited to have you. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So before we get started, I always love to know more about who you were before you became a cinematographer, right? And so before you were telling stories, and if we could go back to your early days, who was Neeraj Jain?
Yeah, so I was a bit of a nerd. Loved technology, science, computers, math, especially. Math was a big thing for me. And I was like very much on the technical side of things. But at the same time, my parents did such an amazing job of encouraging my brother and I to explore the arts. And then kind of wherever there was interest, they also kind of nurtured it and like pushed us to like get better at it, which was awesome, right? I think that's like your entry point, watching. And I think a big part of it was also just like growing up, my parents introduced me to Bollywood films here in the US because that was their way of getting me closer to their culture. And that's how I understood it. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So between those things, eventually middle school comes around, I have a camera and I started making films, and, I was still pursuing other stuff and whatnot, but I always really, really, really enjoyed making films on my MacBook. And we did like middle school projects and whatnot, with friends, and made films. And so the journey really started there when I was like 12 or 13. And yeah, it's been, that was the me back then. And I've been making films since.
Wonderful.
I hope that answers it.
Yeah. So talk to me more about like how you, as a first-gen Indian American, like what were some of those things that your parents were doing? How does your upbringing kind of influence you in choosing the stories you're drawn to now?
Okay, so those are like two kind of different questions.
Yeah.
The first part, I think it's really just the fact that my parents were like, go try this, go try that, go try, try everything. And then it was really just a matter of what we liked. And that's kind of what they kind of did a good job of like kind of keeping us with it. I think as a young kid, you can like kind of lose interest in things very quickly.
Yeah.
And so whenever they kind of realized we were like good at something, they kind of like pushed it as something that we stuck with a little bit longer. It was that. I think it was a lot of like traveling. I went to India almost every summer. And I started traveling alone to India by the time I was like 8 or 9 or something.
Oh, wow.
So from a very young age, we'd just be there for the entire summer. And so I think just kind of, and I don't think you realize it now or then, but you realize it now, where all those experiences of just like traveling the world and seeing things and little moments that kind of just like shape who you are. So I think that's kind of where it all started, right? It's like exploring the world, seeing places, kind of not being restricted in any way, to some extent. And then just like creative expression, whatever those stories are, right? So yeah, I think that's kind of where that started. And then what was your second part of your question?
It was more so about like, how does all of those experiences that you just spoke about, traveling the world.
Into the stories that we work on?
That you're drawn to the stories.
That's very interesting. I think it's just like every person has what they're like, what tickles their brain, I guess, right? And so for me, a lot of that is I kind of like the stories that are like not on the kind of beaten path, right? Something that's off the beaten path. And the way that, my producing partners that I work with and I like to talk about it is we like to call them stories about unseen characters. And it's not necessarily that nobody knows about them. It's actually just the fact that they're the people that someone might say there's no story there, but there really is. I think everyone has a story, and I think that's kind of where we kind of come at it from. So I think that's what it is. I think it's like, are there certain, quirky stories you hear about that excite you?
Mhm.
For me, it's not always about India, right? Like I'm doing a lot of projects here actually, and they're not about even Indian characters or South Asian characters even broadly. Um, so I think it's just like, what do you personally find as something that's interesting to you? And so for me, I think while it is about unseen characters, it's also this ability to like, or not this ability, sorry, that's not the right word. It's about creating projects and films that ask audiences to kind of expand their view of
Mhm.
empathy and expand their thinking of how they can be empathetic to
Yeah.
others and other stories.
I love that. And as a cinematographer, how do you make sure that you're capturing the right feelings and the right emotions? And how do you kind of translate it for the audience to feel empathy towards them? How do you make sure that that
Ugh.
happens?
To be honest with you, filmmaking is such a team sport, right?
Yeah.
So I think like you have your approach to something as a cinematographer, but I think once again, like my approach as a cinematographer has to melt into what the director's approach for the visuals are. And every director has a different approach to the visuals, and they have their own kind of um, thinking of what a scene is about. So a lot of the work that I have to do as a cinematographer is almost like it's like, yes, I can apply my style, of course, but at the same time, I think it's about asking my creative partners,
Yeah.
what is this scene about? What are we trying to get at? What is it's you can always like point to the result,
Mhm.
but what's the effect that we want to create? And then how do we kind of build all the other pieces around it to create that effect, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's kind of how you do it. I think also the thing about cinematography is like, yes, there's a lot of like technique involved, but it's at not even at some point. Most times,
Mhm.
by the time you're filming, you've forgotten so much of it
Yeah.
to the point where it's just like what gut instinct level feels right that you just have to go with that.
Yeah. I think that's so beautiful that you said that filmmaking is more about like a collaboration. And I know you speak a
Yeah.
lot about it. Like you have to work with a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's not a one man's project, which is true. I think what advice would you give to upcoming emerging filmmakers on how they should choose their tribe? Like what kind of people they should be looking for when they're trying to build their team?
That's a very tough question because I think that's something I've also been thinking a lot about
Mhm.
myself. I think I think there's lots of layers to this, right? I think it's also something that you might not have the luxury of as a someone like myself too, starting off in their career. I have to take jobs because I have to take jobs. Um, but I think my favorite collaborations, at least, I think it's the ones where and this is going to sound a little bit crazy, but it's the ones where there is this constant give and take, right? Um, I will see something at a museum and I'll send it over as a text and be like, this could be a cool point to think about for that project. Um, so I think something like that. And it's like also like, you have ideas and it's like, at 2 a.m. something comes to you and you like text it over and you're like constantly communicating. And I think sometimes, with films especially, I think there's a long gestation period.
Yeah.
And and that's a beautiful thing too. It's like it is frustrating at times, like, why is it taking so long? But at the same time, it gives so much room for this back and forth dialogue to kind of exist,
Mm.
which I don't know if the traditional, or not the traditional, but if there was like it's already happening and you're brought on board last minute and you're just going into it and you're just making it,
Mhm.
is there that dialogue of like, what is our approach to this?
Right. So it's going
Um,
deeper than the script really. And like,
yeah, and
yeah.
and and just like questions and thoughts and
Mhm.
ideas and like, what if we did this way and what if we did this that way, and referencing certain like pieces of art, or like you see a play and you're like, oh, that play did that thing and that was really cool and that could make its way into this film in a kind of new way, and
Yeah.
whatever it might be. But I think in terms of collaboration, I think like the best way to put it, and I forget which cinematographer said this, but they kind of say it's like, I want people that after like a 12-hour shoot day or a 14-hour shoot day, I like still don't mind breaking bread with them.
Yeah.
And I do want to go get dinner with them afterwards.
Mm.
Because if you don't want to see your team after the shoot,
Yeah.
that's not the best place to be in. And I think it's important, right? I think it's like that's where all those conversations happen.
I love that. And I think what's also very interesting is that actually going back when people are upcoming, and you mentioned that you are upcoming, but you've done so many projects and there's so many people that are either in your shoes or are still trying to like break into the industry.
Yeah.
What's the best way to reach out to people? Like say I want to make a film, I don't know you, but I want to work with you. How do you do that?
Like as a cinematographer?
Yeah. Or as say I have a script and I want to work with you,
Yeah.
but I don't know how to reach out. And that's kind of how I'm trying to build my tribe. But how do I kind of approach that? Do I just like cold DM, cold email? How does one go about it?
I mean, that's something I'm also navigating too, like everyone else. I think there's different ways to do it. I think you can always send a DM or an email being like, hey, this is something I'm working on and I want to share a bit about it with you. And, you know, I think most people are pretty nice and would like take the time to chat about something. But that being said, I think it's also something where over time you have to build a relationship. I think it's something that has to be kind of somewhat organic. Once again, like I listen to a lot of cinematographers, but I know I've many cinematographers have talked about this, like, you know, just people you want to work with. It's like dating.
Yeah.
You have to meet people. You have to get to know each other. You have to see if you see the world in a similar way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, I don't see the world in the way that an action movie might be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then, but like some director might treat their drama, like, you know what I mean? It's like, you have to just see stories in the same way. You have to have at least some common ground in terms of taste, in terms of style, in terms of what you like.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and then it's like you go to your first project together and, you know, even that first project, it's like walking on eggshells a little bit because honestly, that's the first time you're kind of like, if you extend the dating metaphor, that's your first time living in together.
Yeah.
And it's like, I had like my set to be a certain way. Someone might like their house to be a certain way.
Yeah.
I like a certain amount of peace and quiet on set. And certain people like to work in a very high energy environment. And so what is that kind of space like? And what is it kind of, what's that balance that you have to strike? And then there's like also just like the dynamics of like how you run a set. Cause like, especially as a cinematographer, I mean, after the director and maybe the producer, a lot of people are looking to you for answers. And so I think, but if all three people, like, you know, director, DP, first AD, producer are on a similar wavelength in terms of how that set is going to run, then I think the whole thing can be very smooth.
I love that. I actually really, really appreciate you sharing that. It's very insightful. And I also love the fact that you spoke about building a relationship. I think a lot of people, especially with how accessible things are now, just kind of expect the other person to do the work, which is not really how it should be.
Yeah.
So I love that you spoke more about relationship building and kind of going from there.
You know, doing your homework, knowing the person, maybe having a touch point or two of what you like about their work and how that might connect to your work or how you see that collaboration potentially being. I think that can always be a good thing. And I think the other thing is being very honest, right? I think if you don't have a big budget, say that. That's fine. I think most DPs are not necessarily so tied to what the budget or the rate would be.
Yeah.
I think when DPs ask about the budget or the rate, I think what they're really trying to understand is, okay, you have this big dream of what the visuals and the world is like. Is it achievable within that budget?
Yeah.
That's the question. It's not about what's in it for me, usually, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's like the biggest connection point that, at least as a DP, that I think about, and also my producing background, is the vision executable within the amount of money we have?
I love the two ties. I think it's really important to be able to do that because I know a lot of people and a lot of filmmakers who have like these big dreams, but then take so many years to kind of make it and also find the money. Do you think you've ever worked on a project where someone has quoted a very high budget and you're like, hey, this can actually be done in a much shorter budget and like worked around that? Have you worn both your producer and cinematography hats in projects?
Not necessarily. No, not that way.
Yeah.
More money is never a problem, right? Because it's, granted, I do like the limitation sometimes because then it's controlled and there's no like, you know, when you have more money, I think the other thing is like, okay, we have more money. let's go bring a crane in.
Yeah.
But then also what comes with us having a crane is like 4 more bodies on set to set up the crane.
Yeah.
To set up a crane shot might take an extra 3 hours just to get that shot set up.
Yeah.
So you're adding, it's also time, right? It's not just money, it's money plus time. And it's like, okay, so we have the money to get a crane, but then we need to add the time to set up the crane.
Yeah.
And so all those things kind of compound. And so at some point the money does run out,
Yeah.
no matter what you have, right? And so I think what makes the most sense oftentimes is really understanding the needs of the story and how the director really sees it, right? I've been on sets and films. I did a film where one day we were meeting it was a night shoot. So we met for dinner, but it was called breakfast. And we met up and it was the lead actor, myself and the director. We looked at like the 8 scenes we had to do that day. And we were like, the actor was like, well, all the like individual beats of what's happening, I can do it in 2 scenes.
Yeah.
I don't need to do it in 8 scenes. And so scrapped the 8 scenes and we cut it up and we redid it. And it was like the most efficient thing, right? Because like literally at that point, 6 hours became 2 hours.
Yeah. So you really have to optimize with all the bodies you have.
Yeah, but it's also, it's optimization, but it's also being open to that change, right? I think if you have the plan, but then you throw out the plan.
Yeah.
And you kind of see what feels right in that moment. Because, and I mean, now that I think about it, those 8 scenes probably dragged the film a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you really think about it.
Yeah.
And so now that those 8 scenes now in 2 have like so much more life in them.
That's true. Well, thanks so much for sharing that. I want to take us back to your, like, your studying days. And a lot of people say that it could be the classic path. You went to film school at NYU and then did your ASC masterclass. But I'm sure there must have been like really growing pains during that time. You must have doubted yourself because it's an uncertain path. What was that journey like? And what advice would you give to someone who's also in that uncertain phase of their life?
I don't think that uncertainty ever goes away. I've talked to, cinematographers who are much more experienced than I am, and even newer cinematographers. I think everything kind of ebbs and flows. So I don't think that's something that ever really changes. But I think the biggest thing that I felt at that time that I can think of, like, which is like 21, 22, 23, maybe up to 26, is you have these like ideas and you want to like execute and you want to do things. And at that time, it was like sometimes hard to find those opportunities. And so I think it became like this kind of, how do I show myself? How do I prove myself? If I'm not given the opportunities to prove myself, right? But all that to say, I think it's a part of it. I think to some extent, if you can find ways to still do work, I think a lot of times like people are trying to like jump forward. But I think even if you're just like working with the people next to you, you can find ways to move forward without realizing that you're moving forward. It feels microscopic at that moment. But over time, I think it is a lot of baby steps that turn into big steps.
Yeah. And do you think it's important for someone to go to film school? Like, I know there's a lot of people that had this dream. Like, I mean, I know for myself, I had the dream of being in film, went to school for advertising, don't necessarily have any background in like learning how to be a podcaster, right? And then you kind of just take that jump. And then there's so many things like imposter syndrome and who do you reach out to? You've not really put out the work, your first job ever. Like, how do you kind of navigate those emotions?
The emotions I don't know about, but yeah, I mean, film school itself, a lot of people put a lot of weight on it and like try to think that that's going to be the solution. And I mean, while I think film school is a place to learn, I don't think it's a solution. I don't think it solves anything. I think the best way to think about film school is, at least in my opinion, and I loved my time at NYU, but I think the way I talk about it is, if you want to play a violin, you can watch YouTube videos and learn to play the violin. But having a teacher kind of puts it into a stricter schedule. You have classes every week and you're like growing at like a different rate because you have like, to some level, an expert kind of walking you through the steps and it forces you to practice. And I think film school is the same way. It forces you to practice, right? And get those reps in. There's other things about film school that, that I'm not the biggest fan of. I don't think it does the best job of teaching you how to think about the business of film sometimes. I don't think it teaches you how to do your taxes as a filmmaker. It doesn't teach you how to navigate certain realities of what it means to be a filmmaker, right? So it is a double-edged sword. And I think some of those things are just trial by fire. You have to just do it, experience it, go through the good, go through the bad. I'm still going through some weird, crazy stuff right now. And then you just grow from there. So yeah, I don't think I think a lot of people put weight on film school, but I think the weight should more so be on, can you actually just do the practice, right? It's being an artist, right? In some ways, granted, film is half and half, right? Art and business and technical. But I think it's about being ready when the opportunities come. And I think that's by practicing.
I love that. I think one of my previous episodes, we spoke a lot about preparation meets opportunity. And this is the world of DIY. Like there's so much you can do yourself. There's so many people you can meet and become, friends with. You can have mentors and like really do it on the go. A lot of it is also learning by doing, right? Like when you're thrown into a set or when you're thrown into a pool, right?
I mean,
like
even when I was like in middle school, right?
Yeah.
Like I just got a camera, we edited and made it happen. And we found ways to solve problems that we were having. And like I had the same problems in middle school. I'm not even kidding you. It's funny. I had a friend who was like the lead villain, and he essentially one day decided, because he wasn't like, he was supposedly being treated like the supporting villain. He like walked off a set and said, I'm done with this project and I'm done and I'm not doing it. And for the next 2 weeks of filming, he didn't show up.
Wow.
Which is like probably like equal to some tantrum that an actor throws today, right? It never changes. That never changes. I think it's just humans and people and, and I think, but also at that time, like technology was getting more accessible, but now it's even more accessible. The other day, my nephew, who's like maybe 11, sent me a video that he like shot on his mom's iPad and edited on his mom's iPad. And like, it looks amazing. It's probably better than what I was doing, right? But he's able to do it on an iPad, which is like not even as heavy of a device in terms of like, firepower than the devices we had to use back then. So it is more accessible and it is more doable. So I think it's more so just, okay, what is my taste? What do I like? How do I get to that? How do I, make the visuals better? How do I kind of grow in that way?
Yeah, I love that. I feel like I'm learning so much from our conversation. Okay, so now you've worked both in the East and the West. And tell me more about, how did you land your first project in India?
My first project in India was it? Yeah, I guess my first project in India was Made in Heaven. That was completely by chance, honestly. There was like a lot of random dots that got connected in a matter of 7 days.
Oh, wow. Tell me more about that. I want to know.
I don't know if I want to say too much about it. I can't share too much about it.
Okay, that's fine.
But it was just, once again, it's relationships, right? It was people I'd connected with like on previous trips, and things just things just happened and dominoes fell. And within 7, 8, 9 days, I was like flying to India to go work on that for a little bit.
That's beautiful.
And that was like in this little weird gap during the pandemic. So yeah.
I know a lot of filmmakers, again, like we're like in the West here, they also want to work in the East. What advice would you give to them who want to, break into the creative industry, especially across borders?
To be honest with you, I've only done the one project, and there's probably some other DPs I know that have done both and have done it well. And they're doing amazing work in India. I can think of a couple, but I think it's a lot of things, right? It's taste. It's like, how do you see the world? I think that's what people are asking you, right? Essentially as a DP. So having some sort of a perspective on the story that you can bring your own, lens to. I think from a technical standpoint, it is a different system, and that was a steep-ish learning curve for me. I don't think it's a requirement, but obviously a lot of what helped me is the fact that I speak Hindi fluently.
Yeah.
And so being on set in India made, I was very comfortable. I was very able to get around. I was able to talk to everyone I needed to talk to. And kind of just like really once again, make those friendships that would kind of translate into the work, right? Because then the people want to work with you.
Yeah.
But I think um, but I don't think that's a requirement.
Yeah.
I think I know DPs who don't know that much Hindi and have done well in India.
Yeah.
There's I believe some Polish DPs that are working a lot in India,
Oh,
and
wow,
some
okay.
Ukrainian DPs and all over Europe and other places too. So I don't think you need that necessarily. I think it helps.
Yeah.
But to work in India, I think it's a different system.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of content being made though, and there is a lot of need for DPs in India. So I think it's a good place to work if that's something you want to do. But I think for me specifically with working in India personally is that it's just like, for me, it's like, what is, once again, the filmmaking lens? What's the style? What's the story about? Is it something I can stand behind? Right.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, my question is also, what is the work from there that would translate well to my work here in terms of, I hate saying it, but reputation or something.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about.
No, that's absolutely really well said. And I know a lot of people know this already, but like the working system, the work ethic and the work culture in India versus the US is very different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have your favorite memories and your worst memories that you can share with us? Before we continue with the episode, I want to give a huge shout out to our official show sponsor, Sunblue Sound. If you've not heard of them already, they are an incredible audio production company that specialize in post sound for visual media. They've worked on a range of projects, from ad spots to television series to films that have been streamed on Amazon, Tubi, and in film festivals across the nation. The coolest part, this episode that you're listening to or watching right now has been mixed and edited by Sunblue Sound. Ravi, the owner, is a dear friend of mine, and I can vouch that he truly cares about his clients and embodies their tagline, engineering sound for visionary creators. If you're looking for audio mixing or sound design, reach out to them directly at team@sunbluesound.com. That's TEAM@sunbluesound.com. Now, back to the episode.
I mean, working in India was amazing. Honestly, I actually think the crews there are so dedicated and so, like, yes, okay, like a crew, like a lighting person there might not be as knowledgeable about lights as here, but they're just as excited to be there. They're so helpful. They'll help you with anything you need. It's such a relaxed vibe on set. Usually, like, crew is joking around, having a good time. Especially when you're on location and traveling and stuff, everyone takes care of everyone. And I think that's what I loved about being in India, especially with my like camera team, my grips, my lighting guys, my first AC. Like, it was such a strong team and we were like very much there in it together. Just like the simplest of things, like no one will ever say no, right?
Yeah.
It's like, they'll figure it out. It's like, I wanted to put a skimmer up, like a silk over like the whole thing, like a 40-foot by 40-foot silk. And the guy just climbed up a tree with a rope and put it up, and it was up. Within 30 minutes, I had this 40 by up.
Yeah, it's a Jugaad system in India.
Exactly. It's absolutely the Jugaad system. And so, but those things are, but it's amazing, right? Because that stuff can happen there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I had some of my favorite experiences working with the crews in India. And it is a very family style way of thinking about it. Just like, get it done, however, by whatever means.
Yeah.
But we keep moving, Here sometimes, especially on the bigger sets, it's a little bit more regimented, right? It's like, you can't move a prop sometimes, depending on the vibes of the set, because it's like someone else's department.
Yeah.
So things like that.
Yeah, I love that. I do experience that quite a bit. I mean, as someone who grew up in India and then had to come here, you have to really follow the rule book versus over there, like you said, it's really the Jugaad system and kind of moving things around family style. But you also mentioned that content is really being made in India. And I have spoken to a few people and they've all been like, whether it's independent filmmakers, whether it's films that are being budgeted by, big production companies, it's really being done. But then there's this whole landscape of OTT now that's truly shifted the way content is consumed, whether that's audience behavior, whether that's budgets. How do you see the business of filmmaking truly evolving, especially as a cinematographer?
Oh my gosh. Like, that's just, that's like such a loaded question. And I think it's at a time when, if anyone had the answer,
yeah,
like, if anyone really did have the answer, they could like make millions of bucks right now, right? Because I think everyone right now in the industry, whether you're a cinematographer, director, producer, writer, crew member, everyone's looking for that answer.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. Honestly, that's a very tough one.
Yeah.
I think as a cinematographer, the one thing I can say and will say is that I think because so many things wind up on streaming and are made for streaming,
Yeah.
I have noticed like trends in cinematography in terms of like mediums and close-ups play more than like a wide shot, for example.
Okay.
There's a lot of times people are watching on an iPad or a phone. And if you want to catch the emotion on a phone, it needs to be of a certain size, of scale, of face for you to see it. And I think that's a trend in cinematography that I'm seeing, which is why sometimes like we'll be shooting something, and even if it's not for like a streaming platform or something, we'll shoot the wide and I'll ask the director, I was like, let's go in for a close-up. I was like, are you sure you want to go in for a close-up? Because if you shoot it, the editor's going to want to use it. And if the editor wants to use it, they're going to want, you know what I mean? It's just going to like trickle down. So do you need it? You know what I mean? And sometimes you just have to let it be. And I think that's something I've been noticing. And I think that's something that, it just feels like it's turning more into like a post-production editing medium. So it's like more so kind of like now, can we just like kind of constrict it and control it when you shoot it and say, this is all we have. Go make it work, a little bit selfishly, especially if you have a specific like theory of how you want to approach the cinematography of a project, right? Like say a cinematography or say the film's cinematography calls for a specific approach. And I think you have to really deliver that approach. So that's what they work with. You don't give safety and options.
Right. And I know you've worked both like in mainstream and independent filmmaking. Apart from, the business of filmmaking and like how you said, it really depends on post-production now. Independent filmmaking has always had this like very raw and intimate edge, and you kind of get to say more things that you want. But then also there's this whole concept of distribution. Like how do you make a short be seen by other people? We're all talking about, there's attention span, but there's also so many films that are in that 15, 20-minute mark that I think a lot of audiences might enjoy. Like how do you think, this is more so an industry-based question, like what is your perspective more so on how do we make these films reach the audiences? That's the number one question. And the second part of the question is, what do you think in like your experience have been the harshest realities that people don't really talk about in independent filmmaking?
Oh boy.
You're like, I'm
it's a big one. It's a
loaded
mouthful.
Questions.
And no, it's a fair question, right? But I think that's once again one of those things that that's one of those things that we are trying to figure out as an industry, right? Where are these distribution channels? Where are people going to consume shorts? Where are people going to like find these things? I think you're absolutely like spot on, right? We have so many things that we're constantly bombarded with to watch. And it's not just watching, right? It's watching, it's music, it's podcasts, it's books, everything. Every day there's another one. I'm recommended something every day. And so I only have so many hours in the day and there's only so much I can consume and watch and spend time for. So it is hard. How do you fight for that? And I think that's something that I don't know if there's ever going to be an answer for, because people's people's time is limited. That's the limiting factor. And so, that is the reality of it. And then as for the harsh realities of independent filmmaking, I mean, there's layers to that too. It's, can you put it together? Can you get the financing? And then can you go make it? Once you go make it, can you actually find like, where you're going to land it? Can you get it to a festival? Can you get it to distribution? So not unfortunately, but for whatever it's worth, there's all these layers and hoops that you have to cross. And I think that's like the harshest reality that they at least don't teach you in film school, right? It's kind of, I don't know. I feel like I left film school kind of, if you go make a good movie with great craft, it's going to land up somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's pretty far from the truth, in fact.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other steps.
No, 1000%. And I know you also have your Mind Studios, which is more so a role of not just cinematography, but also being a producer.
Yeah.
As someone who's a producer, but also knows the effort that it takes to, make a film, what are some of your best practices? Like, what are some things that you do differently from other producers to be able to give other filmmakers the opportunity to be seen?
Yeah. So as a producer, I'm at Mind Studio currently. We're kind of working on a very internal slate. We haven't really been looking at projects externally.
Okay.
So in terms of supporting other filmmakers, that's not something that's happening right now, although that is part of our long-term plan and goal. But I think, I think the biggest thing that we're like trying to rethink is just looking at the budgets of the film.
Yeah.
I think things have, in terms of cost, have inflated big time. And I think the question is there a smarter way to make this film at the price that's correct for the film, such that, and make a good film, of course. I think that goes without saying. But then it's like when we take it to market, once the film is finished, there's a buyer ready for it.
Yeah.
And hopefully you can turn a profit, right? If you can make it at the right cost and get it out at the right price, I think there would be buyers at some point down the line. And I think that's kind of my thinking. I think that's kind of I think that's going to be the way forward, because I think, coming out of the streaming era, cost of films have gone up big time.
Yeah.
And I think that's what has to potentially change.
Yeah. I know you and I were talking off record really about how the audience like either needs to go back to cinema. Like, how do these movies end up making money now that we are all on streaming?
Yeah.
I know you have very strong viewpoints on that.
I think, I think streaming is great, right? There's reality streaming that are amazing, because I think streaming is inevitable for any film, right?
Yeah.
You are going to wind up on a streaming platform.
Yeah.
But I think what used to be the case in the past was that the theatrical business was a big portion of the business of the film. And that was the biggest window in which a film could earn its money back. I think that's what needs to be addressed. I think people need to go watch movies more. I think that's something that I'm a big advocate of.
Yeah.
I saw this amazing film recently called A Nice Indian Boy, and it was absolutely fantastic. And I'm really glad I got to see it in theaters. And I think what's been beautiful about that is I've seen people on Instagram post like, hey, this week, if you want to get a ticket, I'll pay for your ticket. And like up to 3 people, I'll pay for 3 people's tickets. People are doing things like that to encourage people to go watch these movies in theaters. I think the other part of, the theatrical business that's important is that that's how we as a people can break into the mainstream.
Right.
Right? A little bit more. If the theatrical business can be proven to be successful, that's how and I hate bringing it about culture, because I think it's just stories, but our stories as a culture can break into the mainstream, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to get a film onto streaming now to some extent.
Yeah.
And it also disappears on streaming. Right?
Yeah.
So I think when it's like, hey, it's in theaters and it did this much business, that's something you can point to and say that on our stories.
Yeah. I love that you said that our stories like have to be put on mainstream. I think that is so important, because I really don't think it's about being South Asian or an Indian story. At the end of the day, it's just a character that happens to be South Asian or Indian or whatever that may be. So I haven't watched A Nice Indian Boy yet. It's on on my things that I need to watch. But I know the story. I've watched the trailer, and it does not feel like it's resonated with culture in itself, right? It's just a story.
So this is the beautiful thing about Nice Indian Boy. It's a queer rom-com.
Yeah.
I'm not queer, but there were so many little things in that film that I related to and connected with. And it was like absolutely amazing to like see certain things in like the parent story and like the relationship between different characters in my own life, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes like the whole thing about identity becomes like this thing that we kind of perpetuate. But it's not about identity, because I'm not queer, but I'm South Asian. And so there's another part of the story, part of the story which allows me to find empathy for the characters because I see myself in them. And I think any film can do that. And that's why I think, as we start, and I think it's like one of those things where as a community, we have to grow into that.
Yeah.
And I think we are. And I think I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, no, 1000%. I feel like we are definitely moving in the right direction. I do want to move forward to my favorite question. It's another loaded question, but it's about AI. I know every second article I read is about AI in every industry, especially now filmmaking. And a lot of people are like scared of, AI taking away jobs. Some people are talking about, you should learn about, how AI can be incorporated to make better films. What is your take? Like, have you used AI to help you be a better cinematographer in your films? And then what do you think is the right balance between human craft and then also embracing technology?
Yeah, to be entirely honest with you, I don't know much about AI.
Okay.
I've kind of just like, it's there.
Yeah.
It's doing things. I'm fairly confident in the work and skill of what I do and bring to the table. And I'm sure that at some point I'll be working with a director or a VFX artist or somebody who's going to be like, hey, let's run this pre-visualization through AI and see what it spits out. And if that day comes, great, we'll do that.
Yeah.
But I think for me, AI ends up being a little bit, at least right now, where I see it fitting into the world of a cinematographer's world is as a referencing tool.
Right.
But for me personally, I don't like referencing AI. Like I don't want to, I hate referencing images.
Yeah.
I rarely like referencing existing films even.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
I like referencing photographs, paintings, art, plays.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a play like 8 years ago, which became such a big reference points for one of my projects that I'm working on. So there's so many, even writing can be a great reference point. So I think there's other things that I like to use as that touch point, more than like something that's like AI and more images. Cause I feel like that's where you start getting into this feedback loop of like existing images and informing existing images or new images. And you just kind of keep going in this circle. And I think AI being built on other images is just, once again, part of that feedback loop. So I don't see it necessarily fitting into like at least my work as a cinematographer. And also the other thing that I struggle with, and I think AI wouldn't be able to do, is how do you contextualize an image? You can create an image, sure, but how do you contextualize that image that's right for the story? Right. So I think for me, it's like the script is like really the starting point. Or like not even, I don't want to say necessarily the script because sometimes a film doesn't have a script, but the story.
I think it goes back to our conversation of like, you really need to have those conversations with your directors, with the people you're working with to bring a story to life. It's really not just words on a paper that get printed into an image, right? It's really about the influences around you. And each scene from a film, I think, is so layered and has so much meaning that connects to each individual in the story. I know there's always like a lead actor or lead character, but I think each one in itself is a main character. And there's so many stories that bring that whole film to life. So I have not used AI much in like filmmaking or even the podcast, right? For example, but I don't understand how it could bring emotion and empathy like we've been talking about, but I'm curious to know how it could do with the way it's advancing.
I mean, I think it is here to stay in some way, right?
No, 1000%.
And it is going to affect the business in some ways, right? I forget. There's like, I'm sure there's a studio out there that's crafting stories using AI. I'm like, you know what? You do your thing. I'll do mine. Then. You know, it's honestly, I can't be, it is worrisome in a way, but at the same time, like, how do I keep any level of sanity if I'm constantly worrying about that in the work I'm creating, you know? So I kind of just let it go. It's like, it's there. People are using it. Great. People are worried about it. Valid. I'm just going to do what I have to do.
You do you. That's the best way to go forward.
At least with that. I think, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. I think it's just like people at some point, I do think personally, it's going to fail because once again, it's a feedback loop. It might spit out the next Marvel series, but okay, it's a great example actually. I might say, hey, AI, give me what could be the next Marvel Cinematic Universe. And people might finance it and say, hey, Marvel did so well. Let's create the next Marvel Cinematic Universe again. And you do it and you put it out into the world. But by the time you put it out into the world, people are so tired of the original Marvel Cinematic Universe that this one is going to fail, right? It doesn't account for the realities of where people's mental states are in terms of what people want to consume. Right. So I think it's like, great. It might give you a good story, but that good story might not be good in 10 years.
That's so well said. Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
So once again, it's like if it's building on existing, it's not contextualizing in terms of like the today.
I love that you said that. That's a great example.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're moving on to my favorite section, which is Spill the Chai.
Oh God.
It's a rapid fire. I promise it's not controversial. It's just fun stuff. Whatever you think of immediately, you kind of just spill that. Okay, so first question, this or that, shooting Made in Heaven Season 3 with Zoya Akhtar or lensing a gritty Dev Patel thriller set in the American Midwest?
Oh God. I really had a fun time working with Zoya. I'd work with Zoya again.
Okay. Spill the Chai, what's one cinematic shot everyone obsesses over on Instagram, but you secretly think is basic?
Cinematic shot?
Or a trend, whatever is easier to answer.
Oh boy. I don't think there's anything in that regard. I think everything, it just fits right in this context of the story.
Yeah.
I think it depends on that.
Okay.
But the one I do think is the most disgusting and worst thing is when they will shoot in, say, a country like India, Bangladesh, Mexico, and they'll just like tint the whole visual yellow. I think that's my biggest pet peeve for sure.
Okay. I'll ask you after the podcast why. Quick choice, you get to reimagine The Sound of the Wind as a stylized Bollywood noir. Who's your dream director?
Oh God. Vishal Bharadwaj.
Okay. Hypothetical, a major streamer gives you the budget and the freedom to shoot anything, any genre, any location, and any cast. What's the first image that comes to your mind and who's in front of your lens?
Oh my God. I think of something in probably in Jackson Heights, in Queens.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's like my favorite. It's a project we're working on. It's like the one that's always kind of top of brain.
Yeah. Is it? Can you reveal the genre at all right now?
It's a drama.
Okay.
It's a magical realism drama.
I love that. Okay.
Yeah.
Complete the sentence. The most visually stunning film that bores me to death is.
Man, it's a tough one. I don't know. Probably one of those like Earth documentaries that are 10 parts and 10 hours long because they are visually stunning.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I can sit through them.
Have you gone to the Vegas postcard? Have you seen it? Like the Vegas dome that has
the sphere.
The sphere. Yes, I couldn't remember what it's called.
No,
okay, it has a whole like 1 hour. It's called The Postcard, and it's a documentary on the Earth. So I'm curious to know what you'd think about it. It's very beautiful. This or that, working with a director who's a total perfectionist or one who gives you full freedom but zero prep.
Oh God.
I think I know the answer to this one.
Full freedom and zero prep. I feel like if we vibe, full freedom and zero prep. Yeah.
Okay. Spill the chai. What's one shot you spent hours perfecting that didn't even make the final cut?
I'm about hours perfecting, but there was a shot that we did in Made in Heaven Season 2 that I absolutely loved. It was just like it was a one shot. It was very simple.
Yeah.
This is definitely a personal favorite of mine. But there was an actor change, and so then that shot got cut.
Okay. A quick choice. You can lens one Indian film from the last 5 years. What film are you reclaiming as DP?
Gosh. I'll skip this one.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll skip this one.
Okay. Are there too many or you can't think of any?
Oh, you know which one I would... Okay, yeah, there is one, but it's not Indian.
Okay.
The one film that I would love to kind of have worked on was Joyland.
Okay.
I was very envious of the work that the cinematographer did. Absolutely amazing.
Complete the sentence. If my visual style had a name, it would be...
I don't use light. It's a running joke with my friends.
Yeah, it's all natural light.
No. It's a running joke that my images are just dark and moody. I do use light, but
Okay.
it's just dark and moody.
Okay. Hot take. This is funny because we spoke about it. If a filmmaker says we'll fix it in post, what's your immediate reaction?
It depends on what it is.
Okay.
There's sometimes it's just worth it, right?
Yeah.
But there's other cases where it doesn't have to be and it's just being lazy, and then I think that's where it becomes an issue.
Gotcha.
But there's plenty of things where I'll be like, let's fix that in post,
Okay.
because I just know, like for example, certain things like with light and stuff, like I know for me to fix that, it'll take me an hour. Whereas my color grader can fix it in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, I'd rather leave it to him than try and fix it on set.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that was the end of our Spill the Chai round. Actually, you did very well.
Thank you.
We're wrapping up, and this is kind of the moment where I'd love to go back and share some more advice and really talk about, what you want to do in the future. So, what advice would you give to your younger self right now?
Don't do it. No, just kidding. I think just like you kind of just do things and you land up where you are, and you land up at where you are because of those things you did. So to give advice to your younger self would be like, just do what you're doing because you're going to land up today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think anything changes. I think, I really don't think anything changes.
The butterfly effect. I really believe in that.
Yeah. To some extent. Yeah. Okay. I think you wind up where you are for a reason. And it's like, you have to do those things to get to the thinking of today.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I think it's just like, honestly, probably just like read more.
Okay.
Read more.
Yeah. That's a good one. And then at this point, like in your journey, you've crafted so many frames. You've done so much work. I know you said that you're work in progress, which is crazy. Yeah. And I think everybody kind of is in that journey. But what legacy do you hope to leave behind?
Oh God, legacy is such a deep word.
Yeah.
I don't even think I can think about that word. Honestly, I can't. I think
like, what impact would you want to leave behind?
Honestly, if I can just keep doing some of the work that I'm doing, get those projects across the finish line. I think if it can expand the world's view of South Asia, that would be like a big thing. I think, once again, not that South Asia is the only focus, but I think that is a big focus. That's how I entered films in the first place when I was a kid. So I think if we can start to break down this Western view of what India or South Asia is and introduce new narratives to the mainstream, I think that's what would be sort of opening the world to think differently.
Yeah. And like you said, like really getting the unseen stories to life. I love that.
Yeah.
And speaking of South Asia, and how do you think, what do you think audience and filmmakers need to do to bring South Asian stories to the center stage?
Well, simply put, audiences have to go watch movies. I think audiences have to go see films. I think they have to support them. To just say, like, talk about diversity is not enough, because at the end of the day, buying a ticket or buying the rental for it or the DVD of it online or whatever it is, like those things that actually translate to like money for the film. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
As for what the filmmakers need to do, honestly, I think the filmmakers need to do what they're doing. I think the filmmakers are doing. A lot of filmmakers are making great movies.
Yeah.
I think the filmmakers are kind of really rethinking those narratives. And I think they're already doing it. I don't think there's anything that needs to happen. I think what needs to happen is there needs to be a way and a pipeline for those films to get funded.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest step. If there's an ability and a way to get those films financed, I think that would kind of open up doors. Okay. Absolutely.
Okay. That was awesome. Well, thank you so much again for being on the podcast and sharing your story and being so insightful about the industry. It was a pleasure. Yeah, no, that was awesome.
Yeah, I hope,
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Chai with Chams podcast. If this episode sparked something in you, go follow us, share it with your friends and family, rate it, and subscribe for more. I will see you next week, where I sit down with another incredible guest that's bringing South Asian cinema to center stage.